So I originally recorded this with my sound off. I'm putting in a commentary not because it needs one, but because I don't like the silence. And trying to fill it with music got a little weird. Now, if you haven't played Half-Life, this is probably going to be very difficult to appreciate. This is a run-through of Source up to... Shit, I never remember the chapters right. Right before the rocket launch. Because the rocket launch is a fucking crapshoot if ever there was one. I can't possibly do the rocket launch whenever I'm recording. Yeah, here we go. I always hated that they made you wait. At least in Unforeseen Consequences. I mean, for the first 2 chapters, you can just skip them. A head crab lands on my head there. A lot of what I learned here is just through trial and error. I didn't watch anyone do it. I never bothered to learn physics exploits or anything like that. That Half-Life 2 done quick thing, I could never hope to be that good. Everything I learned was just, was inspired by a Doctor Who comic where the Doctor plays a video game and he doesn't kill anything. And I thought that was really clever, so I wanted to do it too. And then after repeatedly doing this, dozens and dozens of times, I just got good at it. It's not just a repetition thing, actually. It was just that it was a good way to keep occupied when I wanted to listen to things. I got through a lot of audiobooks and stuff just by replaying Portal every day over one summer. I think I got my time down to about 40 minutes. What's refreshing about Half-Life Source compared to the regular Half-Life, Half-Life 2, I mean, is that you're constantly running. You're always in motion, you're constantly bumping into things, but at least you're always going as fast as you can go. Of course, as you can see, I am taking damage. This is... it's a cost that you have to pay. I'll admit that this is on easy. It's not on easy because I wouldn't be able to handle difficult. It's just that for a no-kill run, you basically just need to soak damage as much as possible. I could have avoided it a lot here if I'd been a little smarter. But once you get to the soldiers, you just have to take bullets, essentially. Really, the worst thing that can happen to you in a pacifist playthrough is getting hit by these barnacles. Sometimes the tongues don't render immediately, but you'll still wind up inside of their hitboxes, and that's fucking awful. That is like the worst fate, to know that you slowly have failed. And it happens to me later on. I'm still counting this as a successful run to where I wanted it to go, because I totally could have avoided it, but in this case I didn't. Headcrabs are really fun when you're playing pacifist, except in this one fucking vent. God, I have lost so many times in this vent because they would not come out, or because 3 of them came out, and one was left inside. It gets even more annoying in Half-Life 2 because the physics props can accidentally crush them. They're such a double-edged sword. Also, that ladder sucks. I think that's like the first ladder they programmed in this game. And this is the first section where you really just have to book it. With Vortigaunts, you just have to get a wall between you and them within a few seconds of them seeing you. It's not that bad. But in some cases, you just can't do it, like here. I feel really awful for the security guard. Now, up to now, I haven't died, but I do die a couple times later, and instead of bothering you with just my continuous attempts to redo the same section, I just spliced in from the loading screen. One thing I forgot to show because I was in a bit of a hurry is that if you close these doors before the bull squid and the scientist can run through them, only one will close. And then ever after, if you try opening and closing them again, one door opens and one closes. I always thought it was weird that you could run on those shelves, but not through these ducts. But it's useful to think about it economically when you're talking about your health in some of these sections. When you come up against a head crab in a vent, you just have to take it, basically. As long as it's a relatively wide vent. I hate that last room. That last room is like an Indiana Jones trap for the ambitious. But there, you see, that was a little shaving of my health in exchange for safe passage. There's that guy. Don't care about him. This is basically my version of a party trick. One time I did it for my roommate, and he laughed because I got up here so quickly that the scientist fell down seconds before I jumped onto the ladder. He also just stared at me for half of the shit that I did. I've tried I don't know how many frickin' times to save that one scientist from running into the first of these explosives. There's no way to do it. If you close the doors early, he will open them up again and then run through. If you detonate the explosive, he will run through and get hit by the turret. If you try to kill the turret, he'll get killed by the head crab. There's no frickin' way. Now, you may be wondering why in a pacifist run I don't bother to save anybody, and why I also consider turrets to be living things, but it makes things easier. I was considering putting just some of the shit that I would listen to over this, and then providing no explanation for it. Like an episode of True Capitalist Radio, or a reading of Spaceship Earth by R. Buckminster Fuller. But I realized that no one was going to watch this anyway, except like the 5 people I'm going to send it to, and I don't want to make it any harder for them. I really love the Source engine, if it's not clear. Like, I'm content to play no other game than games made in the Source engine. Or in Gold Source. Or Gold Circ, or whatever the fuck you call it. It was a very wise decision for them to include the battery as a separate meter. There are plenty of sections in the game that would be impossible in a pacifist run if you just started a new game there, because you don't have any battery. And here are my 6 seconds up on the surface, and back down. Now, really, I have a great love for this game, of course, but I also really love Opposing Force. I never finally got to the end of Blue Shift. I never got to the very last chapter of it. I'm incredibly, deeply fond of They Hunger. I'm going the wrong way. And there are tons of games that I've always wanted to finish but never really got able to. Issues, Reissues, and Project Quantum Leap. Those 3 mods. None of them would run on my computer, sadly. I could never get Timeline to run, which sucks because it sounds awesome. And there we go. Really, there's something really fun about pacifist runs and speed runs in general. There was a little games journalism about it, where people, they were kind of trying to turn against the trend of violence in video games. They asked, well, does this mean that really all of the players are going to turn into Zen Buddhist monks or something? If you hit that button too early, the platform closes without sending this one down, and that sucks. But the problem is that pacifism is just an interesting challenge, the same as killing everything possible or getting all the points or getting no points. It doesn't actually imply anything moral, just like trying to murder everybody in a game doesn't actually imply anything moral. Since all things in the game can't actually be reduced to calculations being run by a computer, there's no real ethical content to them. Unlike reality, where they have true moral consequences. And that's not me saying that, that's some fucking textbook I had to read for a game design class. I feel very grateful that I made that fucking jump from that tram on the first try, because I always fuck it up. But it's surreal in some places where I feel like I could make a memory palace out of the architecture of these games. You know, I'll just be running through it and I'll remember something that I listened to 8 years ago. Like, I was just watching some reality television, I think, while I was playing this. And here's the fucking barnacle. You know, I had absolutely nothing in my to-watch list. But I can still remember half of it. What's fun about that security guard who shoots at this thing and distracts it, normally he would die, but if you run out before him, then that script doesn't execute for some reason. I was really sloppy here, which is why I have almost no health. I actively thought I was going to die here. This is still a continuous run. I haven't died yet. Normally, I could just jump into the radiation, and since it's water, it would break my fall in the broken physics engine of this game. But I was very lucky to grab the ladder. I always wanted to know this scientist's story, because he just tells you to get lost, as if he has a really great hiding spot. There are only a couple of these little tricks that I get to show, but I enjoy all of them immensely, and I make sure to do them like a frickin' tour guide whenever I get to show this to somebody else. This is just kind of dumb, but I like to get rid of that zombie. Fun fact, I actually was eating while I was doing this. So I missed my turn-off because I was trying to shovel food into my mouth. And I said to myself, well, I can still make it. So again, I'm taking losses that I don't need to. And I'm getting lucky where I really shouldn't be. So it all works out. This isn't my best run, but after fucking an hour and a half of doing this, I didn't feel like doing any more. But these things don't really bother you because they're all still preoccupied with being shot at by this guy who they weren't scripted to kill anymore. Let's see, there's zombies down there. If you turn around through half of these runs, you'll just see a parade of enemies behind you, so I make sure never to do that. You can also kind of rappel down that ladder if you just keep hitting spacebar and you're careful to time your jumps correctly. But I didn't feel like risking it. And here I tried and kind of failed to estimate where I was supposed to go. The thing is that the architecture of Half-Life makes perfect sense if you just stand there and think about it for a while. Not like the architecture of Black Mesa, but the way that the map is laid out in relation to the rest of the maps, it makes perfect sense. So if you just stand there and you think of your orientation inside of the building with where you came from and where you're trying to get, you can figure out where that vent is. But I was doing it for an audience, and I didn't feel like standing there for 5 minutes and like drawing a diagram. Now, sadly, my very low health stops me from making a few extra shortcuts. Just because I wouldn't be able to survive a few measly falls. All of those explosive crates over there, they only exist to make sure that that other security guard dies in this fire. Right now I'm looking for another med kit. But sadly, there isn't one around here. I thought there was. So now we get to murder our security guard friend. I feel awful for this guy. You can't even interact with him. So you could totally jump through there if you have about 30 more health than I do. I don't need those, but who cares? I'm probably going to do one of these of opposing force, at least of some parts of it. And in there I can actually avoid getting any of the weapons, at least for a while. In opposing force I can make it up to the big elevator section, like that big lift tram that takes you up to where you get shot at by all of your comrades, and then you make it into your frickin' military base right before everyone evacuates. I'm sorry if this doesn't make sense to anybody else, but I've memorized these games, basically. So I died from drowning back there. But you see that? You see those fucking little barrels? Before I continue, I'm going to show you where they come from. And where they go. There we go. So they get pulled up this big brick thing that no one's supposed to see. Just it's randomly textured so it doesn't break the game, I think. And then they're just shoved straight back out through this. But they're solid objects. You can be hit by them. It's just the same 12 getting kicked up over and over again. So anyway, I died like 15 times, and then I just chose this one to be the one that I reset to. Because this next section is absolutely killer. One thing I like to do is show off that you don't have to fall down this pipe. If you just back up at the right moment, you don't have to fall down it, and you can choose to fall in another location, which technically spares this head crab that's underneath of the desk, at least until you touch the desk or bump into it, in which case it collapses anyway, because hit detection. But the problem is that the desk also breaks your fall because it has those health kits on it, and any other version of the fall will take more damage. And I need to take as little damage as possible to even have a chance of surviving this section. One of my favorite moments is where clearly I just killed these guys with my fucking telekinesis. And this fucking section. This is so impossible if you don't do some things correctly, like immediately jumping off of here and then hitting the ground. There are ways to break the fall more gracefully, I remember, without taking any damage. But I was just lucky to have made it that far. I'm pretty sure headcrabs are natives of Zen. No, they are part of the Nihilance troops because they are Combine weaponry. I always wondered why there weren't, like, Vortigaunt headcrab zombies. What's nice about headcrabs is that if you can get them all in one area and they're all facing the right way, then you can just dodge all of them at once. I'm doing something important when I keep pulling this lever. It doesn't look like it because I fuck it up. Also, these Vortigaunts are always hitting me through these wooden slats because I destroy too many of them in most of my runs. So getting that battery power is a matter of running back and forth constantly, just holding E. There we go. I had it right the first time and then I fucked it up. There we go. So, of course, sometimes the Gargantua just wedges itself inside of this thing, in this particular hallway I just ran through. In this case, I was lucky enough that it went where it was supposed to go and it didn't bother me. It's possible to skip all of this just by jumping over the barricade. But the problem is that I have no idea how to clip through the beginning of the next chapter without a tram. So, of course, you have to set that handle upward so that you can jump and kind of slam dunk it back down. That's one of my favorite things in this entire game. And this is so refreshing. This is one of the wonderful things about not starting a new game on this chapter, that you get to run ahead and ignore the hell out of this guy. Yeah, this part fucking sucked. I'm running a fucking video capture thing on my screen, and I hit some kind of hotkey for it, and I started drawing shit on my screen. And then it started recording me when I tried pulling up the command prompt and shit to turn it off. It was fucking awful. Also, 2 of those barnacles got me. There's one spot you can stand in, and as long as you keep to that one area, none of them will touch you. But I couldn't remember exactly what it was. One of the more fun parts of the tram sections in this game are just not doing them. Particularly because you can't possibly turn on the crane that makes it possible to move the tram past here without killing a sentry. Sorry, a turret, I guess. So I had to abandon it. And really, you don't need it at all past that section. Once you get out of the electrified water, there's no reason to have a turret, which is, I'm sure, the only reason that Valve included electrified water there. I would love to have been a beta tester for this game. One thing that kills me more than anything in these runs is this exact section. Like, first off, the actual hitboxes don't get drawn for those explosives until a few seconds after the level starts. Sorry, after the map starts. And so when you run, you'll run straight into them, and then they'll be drawn around you, and they'll explode, and then you'll have about 2 health or die. And when you try to reload the map, you'll be restarted exactly where you were, and then you'll keep dying over and over again. And this is the most unpredictable map in all of Half-Life, I think. There's just an entire conflict, a drama going on between these Vortigaunts and the humans. And you just have to wait it out. Depending on who wins, you can get through more or less easily. Vortigaunts are always... it's always better to go up against them because you can dodge them more easily. They don't use tactics very well. Here I almost run into more of them. There we go. This isn't something I've done before. I'm constantly trying new things out just to entertain myself. There was health back there that I should have gotten, but I kind of forgot about it. I was worried about being shot anymore. Now this guy's just annoying. But it's really funny because for the whole game, when you first play it, you care so much about keeping your tram with you so that you can make it through all these different sections. And then you realize that the tram is just the only way that Valve is making you take these detours. You can vault straight over all these little things on your own and just walk along the side. I think that's why they didn't include it in the training room, just so no one would be able to run their way over. This was a mistake that I made. When I showed this to my friend, he started laughing because he hated that ambush, and he didn't realize that you didn't have to do it. Another advantage is that when you're in the tram sections, almost all of the threats to you are at about the height you are at when you're standing on the tram. So if you just stand or crouch in this section, they can't possibly hit you. Even this crouch is probably unnecessary. Like, right here, you can just head straight through. Now this section, usually I would throw a grenade or something down. In this case I didn't. I kind of forgot about it. We're approaching the very end. I was hoping that I would be able to do something with the rocket area, but I'm not going to have very much luck. The very furthest that I've managed to make it is through right up to the dentist chair room where you have to rescue all of the scientists that are trapped inside so one of them can open the door for you. I think that's in questionable ethics. Just the hallway to get to that room is horrible. And there we go. That's about as far as you can get. And thank you for watching.